In episode 492, Ryan and Jose are joined by Barbie Wilde of Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, to catch up and talk about the Cilicium Quadra and the new edition of the Venus Complex. This is the Clive Barker Podcast, where longtime fans Ryan and Jose interview guests, bring you the news, and take deep dives into Barker-related stuff. This interview episode will be available on podcast audio and YouTube video. This episode is sponsored by Don Bertram's Celebrate Imagination. Don Bertram is a longtime friend of Clive and advocate of his art, but Don's unique and inspiring paintings are for sale, and over 50% of the proceeds go to the Arts and Medicine program at the Texas Children's Cancer Center. There's even a paver in Washington, D.C. representing Celebrate Imagination. We're thrilled that this worthy cause is sponsoring our podcast again this year, and we hope that you'll consider looking over his Pinterest page and commissioning a painting of your own. For commissions, Don requires no money down, and there will be no obligation on your part. You can also head over to the Etsy shop to buy one of his books, like A Chimney Sweep's Tale, Celebrate Imagination, or The Imaginaries. Follow the link in the show notes, or click on the side banner, and let's see what's new with Don Bertram today. On his Facebook page, you can find Homage to Pearland and Homage to Pearland 2. Texas friends, be sure to check out the Pearland Arts Festival on April 26th. But also I wanted to bring up something that Don Bertram just shared. But our former guest, Hans Rueffert, is undergoing a medical procedure and needs our help. So I've got a link here in the show notes to the GoFundMe. So please click on that and take a look. Hans Rueffert developed the Imagica trading card game. He also made a glossary on one of the Imagica releases, so please check that out, and got a link to that episode in our show notes, as well as a link to his GoFundMe. Let's welcome our other sponsor, Ed Martinez, and his YouTube channel. Lots of great special effects videos and Barker-related content. What's the latest from Ed? Ed's found some archival footage of Mad Model Party in 1997, where Yasushi Nirasawa had his models, and Clive was introduced to him by Ed. Hey, if you want to help us out, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/BarkerCast589. Our subscribers will get exclusive access to content not available anywhere else, like our Collector's Corner video series, rare Barker videos, and early behind-the-scenes stuff. Our supporters get to help us choose episode topics and even join us on the podcast. Our supporters also get access to the exclusive channel in our Discord server. We'll be forever grateful if you consider helping us out and subscribing to our Patreon. We owe everything to this circle of magicians, so let's give a shout out to our Patreon supporters and see what's new on Patreon. Thanks to our listeners and friends David Anderson, Erik Van T Holt, Daniel Elven, Amanda Stewart, Bradley Gartz, and Markus. Also thanks to our sponsors, Don Bertram and Ed Martinez. Very soon I'll have a video put together chronicling the transport and, the purchase and the setting up and the hooking up the electrical and internet and everything for the BarkerCast Studio that I'm recording in right now. So watch out for that. Don Bertram recently gave us a 47-minute interview with Hans Rueffert, who had the Luna 7 gallery, created the Imagica card game. So it's a really nice long-form interview going over Clive Barker artwork, and it's really cool. So you should check that out if you're a Patreon subscriber. Thank you for hanging in there and listening to our sponsorship stuff. We really appreciate it, and now let's get started with the interview with Barbie Wilde. Welcome, this is episode 492 of the Clive Barker Podcast, and we have our special returning guest, Barbie Wilde. Thanks again for joining us. It's been since 2015 that you were here last.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I think we should do this more often than once a decade.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I was wondering when the last one was. That's
yeah. I mean, you've joined on like larger group chats, but that was the last time that we had you on, and it was to talk about this, Voices of the Damned.
Oh yes, my beautiful book, which is sadly
I love that. I love that hardcover.
Oh, it's good, and I bought up all the ones available, the deluxe editions from my publisher. So I'm sort of, I'm keeping a bunch for myself.
So you can and bring some to conventions and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. So sorry, in Jose, you had an intro that you.
Yeah, I can bring that up. So
Yeah.
what I have here is that so the Cilicium Quadra, right? It's a 2024 horror collection, renowned, written by Barbie Wilde, our special guest, renowned for her portrayal of the female Cenobite in Hellbound Hellraiser 2. And this book is comprising of four interlinked stories centered around Sister Celice, a woman forced into a convent who embraces forbidden desires of power and sensuality. Upon discovering a key to the schism, she summons the Cenobites and willingly trades her humanity for eternal, infernal sensation. And the narratives delve into her transformation and emergence of a female rebellion within the hellish Order of the Gash, expanding the Hellraiser mythology with visceral and erotically charged horror. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how I do it or why, but I start writing, hey, I'm going to write a short story about, I don't know, something. And I don't know, thank goodness my parents have gone to their reward. Oh, we're so proud of our daughter. But I don't know why I managed to get into this whole sort of erotically charged fiction thing. But I think actually when it comes to the Cenobites,
Mhm.
I'll go back to, my God, when the Hellbound Hearts anthology came out, which I think was in 2009.
That's right.
There it is. And Paul Kane emailed me and said, Barbie, because he was helping me trying to get a publisher for the serial killer book, Diary of a Serial Killer book, the Venus Complex.
Yeah.
And he said, listen, I've read your stuff. I'd love you to write a short story from this, giving it the female perspective. And I went, I can't believe I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I only write crime, which is really stupid. And he said, oh, please give it a go. So I wrote it in a week, the first story,
wow.
Sister Celice. And I took the inspiration was that somebody somewhere, I think it might have been Gary Tunnicliffe, who came up with the idea that she might have been a nun in a previous life. Because that's not mentioned I don't believe it's mentioned in the Hellbound Heart story. But I thought, oh, I've got issues with the Catholic Church, as I'm sure most people who had any peripheral touching of it. I thought, hey, this is interesting to explore. So I wrote it in a week, and I've never written a short story since that quickly. Things just came to me just before I go to sleep every night. I wrote it all down. Let me go to sleep. And it just haunted me. And it came out. And then I think the second story, which was the Cilicium Pandoric, was published in oh gosh, I don't know, I can't remember. A horror magazine edited by Chris Alexander. Gorzon. It was Gorzon.
That's
and it's now called the Cilicium Configuration, because basically she gets pissed off for playing second banana to probably getting ahead of myself here, to Hell Priest or Pinhead, or what do you want to call him? And she creates her own box to make more female Cenobites. But I'm probably getting ahead of myself here. But
that's an interesting concept too, because I think for people that read the Hellbound Heart, it felt like the female Cenobite in the story was more front and center than Pinhead was.
Well, I went back and read the book again in preparation. And I thought, hold on a minute, this is But I think what the decision was, as far as the movie was concerned, they didn't want three female protagonists. They had Kirsty, had Julia, and they felt that the head Cenobite or lead Cenobite should be male.
But she definitely felt like she was the ambassador to Frank, so she did all the talking, and the rest of them kind of stood behind her.
Yeah. But it was great reading the story again, because I think the first time I read it was in preparation for doing the film. And it was a funny experience, because I came in for the second one
Yeah.
Grace Kirby had scarpered back to Scotland, saying she never wanted to do that kind of makeup job again. I don't blame her. But,
Oh
Yeah.
goodness.
so everybody knew each other,
Mhm.
and it was kind of it was sort of, I had to sort of make friends very quickly, but you're sort of used to doing that when you're an
Yeah.
actor. But it was extraordinary to be part of this ongoing wonderful mythology
Yeah.
and be given the chance to write my version of it. It had to be based on the book and not the movies, you see, for
Right.
copyright reasons, obviously. And then at the third story is, of course, her leading the rebellion in hell and all hell breaking loose. And the fourth one is almost like an epilogue. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
She becomes a mother.
yes,
Correct.
you. Yes.
So I appreciate the all the references that you've included in the first story about Sister Celise. It makes it seem like this is taking place sometime in the early 20th century, because there's some reference to certain names like Father Jose Maria Escriva, which was who was the guy who created the Opus Dei, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
who had a very interesting idea about pain and how pain was important in you know, pursuing the love of God and Jesus.
yeah.
He is mentioned here, and Sister Celise, she was a nun called Veronica,
Hmm.
and for those who don't know, a Celise is a small tight thing that you put around either an arm or a leg or something. It's got these little thorns on the inside, and certain Opus Dei members are known for using that in their daily routines as well, right? So,
Yeah, they tighten it and it hurts and it reminds them of Christ's suffering.
right,
That's
right.
the theory anyway. So I thought that would be a fine name for a Cenobite. But I will give Dan Brown, a little tip of the hat, because I first heard of Opus Dei in watching the,
Da Vinci Code.
thank you, the Da Vinci
Yeah.
Code.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, oh, this has got to be made up. Oh my God, it's not. And so that was very interesting to me. And so that was kind of a bit of an inspiration. But there is this organization. So what was it? Love be pain, glorified be pain, sanctified be pain.
That's
That
right.
really sounds, very cinebiotical.
Yeah.
So, so
Cinebiotic?
Sister Veronica is introduced as someone who is very repressed. I mean, very everybody always told her what to do her entire life, and she never had any agency. And even
Hmm.
her parents ended up putting her in a convent, which seemed to be the place where a lot of families would drop their daughters that had issues, right? Back in the
Yeah,
day, used to be kind of like, well, you go in there, you become a nun, and then we'll find you a husband and we'll marry you off, and if not, then you become, a bride of Christ, right?
yeah. When I
And
was, oh, sorry. When I
yeah, go
was
ahead.
doing a bit more research, I actually read a book about a woman who was put into a convent in the UK.
Mhm.
Not that she really had the desire to do it. She was 16. You can't do that anymore. Um, and she had a pretty rotten time. And she finally ended up going to Cambridge or something like that. But it was a very interesting story.
Hmm.
And so I got a lot of, I think that was when I was trying to write the second story. So I just read it along the way because it's always fascinated me.
Yeah.
Um, I've read, recently seen Conclave and the whole ritual and the whole extraordinary, not recently, it was a few months ago,
Right.
and another one called The First Omen. Have you guys seen The First Omen?
Haven't. No.
Oh,
I hate that they called it that because I always wanted to call the original movie The First Omen.
yeah. Well,
I
the
You
see.
funny
can't
thing
do
is
that
Doug,
anymore.
no, well, Doug Bradley, recommended it. He said, since you like sort of nuns going nuts,
Right.
nuns,
Is
you'll
that
love this film.
is that First Omen like the story of how Damien got planned out for like the Omen series?
Yes. And
Okay.
the ending is the perfect segue. It's
Really?
actually quite extraordinary film. And it's, Doug Bradley himself recommended it. So I think I saw it on the plane or something. Very
I'll have to
strange.
watch that. I still remember watching the first four Omens with Sam Neill, I believe, and they're
Yeah.
still really good. I think they hold up really well.
Yeah. The first one had Gregory Peck in it.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting because that's
the only one I've seen.
Classic actor. And
Yeah.
I came home from that movie, and at that point I was living at a desanctified Roman Catholic church in Chittenango, New York.
No way.
No one else was there.
Wow.
I was living in the bell tower. No cracks, please believe me. I'm for real.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow.
And it was this wind was going through, and I was like, but I saw the second one. I can't. Yes, and Sam Neill. The third one too. I didn't know there was a fourth one.
I think so. Yeah, I think there were 3 or 4. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've got into that. But poor Sister Veronica. I mean, she's stuck in this repressed environment at a tender age, and she ends up sublimating her desires into like these ecstasies of punishment and regret and basically she doesn't have an outlet for her desires. So what she ends up doing is mortifying herself, mortifying her flesh. And it doesn't seem to help, right? It just seems to compound.
It never does. You think people would realize this, but no. I mean, she obviously is a youngish person who's got sexual desires, and she's not allowed to. She has to sublimate them, and she thinks she's wicked, but then she gets kind of turned on by whipping herself, and she has these terrible, unfortunate fantasies, and it gets worse and worse, and so she goes down into the catacombs or something to work and try and cool her brain off.
The library.
Find these writings. And I suppose the challenge for me was to find a way that perhaps just to be on the different, but still be inspired by Clive's original work, is to find a way that, and he does mention it in The Hellbound Heart, that there were different ways of getting to the Cenobites other than the puzzle box.
Exactly. Like,
and I took that as an inspiration.
She comes across kind of a forbidden knowledge, right? When people aren't allowed to experience things on their own, they try to find ways of reading with others where others have traveled before. So she finds this grimoire, which I particularly like the description of it, with dead roses inside a box and a dead raven. Which is a beautiful way to describe it. And then there's a connection here between this and the Hellbound Heart, right? Because Clive mentions Athanasius or Kircher or whatever. And this is also referencing a bishop called Athanasius who wrote that particular grimoire. And that's how she manages to tap into the arcane knowledge of summoning the Cenobites. And that opens up the whole world of sensation for her.
Yeah. And, at the end, the Cenobites were almost laughing because she's so enthusiastic about it. Whoa, she's got a great capacity for suffering here. She should be one of us, and not with the Groucho Marx voice, but no, it's strange sort of going past it because this is a story I wrote so long ago, but it does seem to reverberate with people. And it was, it was a challenge to continue on the mythology of this particular character. But this is how wonderful, and I tip my hat to Clive because he's so inspirational, and I've tried to, do his original mythology justice. by creating a character just as sick and twisted as Julia.
Certainly. And
Yeah.
it's funny because other actors have done the same or similar. I mean, they've gone and they've taken the backstory of their character and published it. Like, for example, Nicholas Vince did that for the Chatterer, right? He's done that twice.
He's in the Hellbound Hearts as well. Yeah.
That's right. And like Peter Atkins himself wrote a story about the characters that we see in Hellraiser 3 as well, little backstories for them, including Barbie the bartender. So it's funny when actors take possession of the character and decide to run along with it. And I think you've done a really good job on this one with this beautiful cover. This cover for the book is by Steph Sciullo.
Yeah, that's Doug's wife, Steph.
Yep.
And her Instagram page is called Brain Sick and Damned.
Yeah.
The artist Steph Sciullo. Yeah. And her stuff is so unusual. It just really strikes me. And I'm hoping that, unfortunately, it's taken a couple years for this to come about. But there's going to be a Sister Celeste graphic novel, fingers crossed.
Oh, wow. That's a great
idea. And I really want, they're talking about, alternative covers and stuff like that, but I really want one of her artworks to be the cover. And we've got another a female artist is considering doing it, who isn't like put off by the source material. And so it's just keep your fingers crossed. It's by Hellbound Media.
Oh yes, I know who they are. I think they used to have the old website for the Hellbound web, right? I think
might do. I don't know. There's a lot of Hellbound things.
Hellbound Media. Got it. Yeah. Yes.
They did Mark Adams directed the film. I was in a couple. God, when was it? Was it last October or the year before?
Oh,
where's the time gone? This is it's called Blood /Stream, and I'm in it's sort of like a portmanteau horror movie, and I'm playing a something called In Eating Disorders, which is I'm a queen of a cannibalistic society.
Oh my gosh, when is that coming out?
Oh, well, it's going to be shown hopefully in a Ruler Thriller Film Festival in Wales, I think. But it's all still, I don't even quite know if I should be mentioning this, but the guy said, can you come and be our special guest? And this was in August. So I assume it's finished, and I assume that it's going to be out soon.
Oh, that's fantastic.
The festival circuit.
Wow, that's great.
I wonder if it's on IMDb yet.
Oh, I think it is. Yes, I think it is. I hope it is.
I love the all the other artwork that's also scattered throughout the book. And
yes, the wonderful Adrian. Yes, it's Adrian Baldwin, isn't it? Yes. I know. It's great. It's
Zabalba, the Raven, in a little knickknack shelf here with like a Eiffel Tower and other things. I think this really is beautiful, and the mechanisms that are also shown here, like these boxes, and it's just amazing work with all the chains and the ravens flying around.
No, his work is wonderful too. It's just great working with great, artists. That was the joy of doing Voices of the Damned, because every story was accompanied by a wonderful artwork, including 3 of Clive's. But he just, I could not, he just came up with these ideas, and I went, sure, I couldn't fault them. And the idea for the crows and the ravens, I must admit, I have this very special love for them, not just because they're dressed in black, but I've always had a fondness for them. I think they're so wonderful, and occasionally I see them strutting around, and so that they were a very special part of the whole thing. And so they had to be part of the configuration box and stuff like that, including Nick Percival, who did the covers of the Boom Hellraiser comics.
That's right, Nick Percival.
Right.
Good stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
It's
third story, the Cilicium Rebellion, was it originally only in Voices of the Damned, and
yes,
then
it's
now
first
it's been
appearance.
also okay.
Yeah, because I've read, since I was going to a lot of conventions and stuff, it did look that, um, people, bless them. It's the same with, people who like me because my group supported Gary Newman in the 80s. They don't
Mhm.
really know about my horror life. And, but it's if they love you because you're the female Cenobite, they don't know I've written books or anything.
Hmm.
So but I thought to myself, well, since the book was out of print and stuff, and I do sell them at conventions, the ones I have left, but I thought it'd be nice to have them all out as a collection because
Yeah.
um, this is what the fans are interested in is the
Hmm.
female Cenobite storyline.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it was
that's why,
nice to see it all collected for the first time here,
yeah,
and now in this Cilicium Quadra.
yeah. And I wrote this, like I said, this sort of epilogue at the end, Queen of the Labyrinth, as something that was specially for that collection. And Dean Drinkle has been very supportive of my
Hmm.
work, and I've done I don't know how many books he's asked me to contribute to. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I have this
wonderful.
one, the Demonologia Biblica,
Biblica,
right?
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have
It,
the letter A in that one, I think, right?
oh, that's right. And funnily
You got the
enough,
very first one.
I love that. Okay, you got an A. Shit. Okay, what can I do? Alpdruck. Oh, that's the dream demon that's in the famous Nightmare painting by Fusili. Okay. But the difficult was one we did I can't remember what this one was, but uh I got a Z for one of his.
Yeah, it was something with zombies, right?
Yeah, yeah, Zulu
Yeah,
zombies.
Oh,
Zulu,
that's
Zulu,
right.
yes, yeah.
I
It's been
remember
a
that
while since
story.
I've
Yeah, I'm
read that
still
now.
working on the screenplay for that, but I really
Oh,
should.
really?
But it was just because one of my favorite movies was Zulu. As a kid, I went to see it.
Yes.
My father was fascinated by that. I mean, he and I went to see um, the film with Rod Steiger as Napoleon,
Yeah.
um, and lovely Christopher Plummer as Wellington. Can't remember the name of that, whatever that big battle was. And we'd go and see these films like Patton, George C. Scott, but also Zulu
Mm.
and Lawrence of Arabia. But I was far too young for these films, but it was just so exciting. But I thought, well, that's it. Rhymes, Zulu zombies, or two Z's, or
Yeah.
Leak. And I came up with this infernal idea, but that was the one that Nick Percival did the artwork for, and it
That's
was wonderful.
right. It was a really good one. And I never saw, I don't think I've seen the movie Zulu, but I remember seeing, do you guys remember this TV show called Shaka Zulu from
Yeah,
1986?
I was just thinking about that too. Yeah,
Yeah, I do remember that
when we were
one,
kids.
but I got to
What?
watch that original movie.
It
Yeah,
was a TV miniseries, I think.
that's right. I
Oh
think,
Yeah,
no, no, I don't know that one. I'll have to check
yeah,
yeah.
it out. But
that
I
was
mean, this
1986. Yeah.
the first movie had a really, really, really baby Michael Caine
Oh,
playing a tough, a snooty um, uh, officer.
Uh-huh.
And Michael Caine was from the East End, right? So but he was
yeah,
obviously an actor.
yeah.
But it was like one of his first big breakout roles, and Stanley Baker played the guy. But the events in Zulu, which are detailed kind of in the book, in the story,
Mhm.
is that there was this massive battle which the British lost miserably, and there is a movie about that, Zulu Dawn, with Burt
Hmm.
Lancaster, and all the Zulus were coming back and they were all celebrating. And then they saw this little outpost, Rorke's Drift, and they went, oh, let's attack that. But the Zulu zombies are trapped in this spirit bottle and they are let loose in central London.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my. I'm still a big fan of Pollitt.
What
That
book
that
was that
story
in?
for me is just amazing.
Oh,
I just
yeah,
love Pollitt.
Paula.
That's
Oh,
so fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd make a good movie, but gross
That
out.
would. Yeah. I mean, just like, like a basket case or, brain damage or something like that. Polyp
Yeah.
would be something amazing if some other director would pick that up and turn it into a full feature. But
Yeah.
this Cilicium Quadra from
Getting back to the point. Yeah.
Domain Publishing, right? Or is this like, how do you pronounce this? Is it like the French pronunciation, Demain or Domain?
Domain.
Domain.
I
There
always
you go.
call it domain,
Yeah.
Okay.
like the
So
domain of horror.
they not only posted this one, but they also published Patient K, which we will
Yes.
get to
Yeah.
eventually in the future.
Yes. Yeah.
Patient K is also another one, which is really, really cool. I've got that on a Kindle, and I will get the paperback as well.
I
And
kind of find it very cool, actually, that he does these short, sharp shocks
mhm,
thing of just
absolutely,
these little, almost like a chapbook. There's
yes,
one story in it, but
Yeah.
it's fully packed. Patient K is truly, like most of my other works, really disgusting. And I also did one for him that was about, it had to be based on, I think it was called, the anthology called Circles of Hell.
mhm,
Yes. Yeah.
And
I'm remembering reading that one.
yeah, and he
But
gave me
somebody was
love.
trapped in a basement, right?
Yeah, no, that's Botophobia. That's another
Oh, okay.
phobia story.
Okay. Sorry.
Um, um, but yeah, it was fear of basements.
Yeah.
But uh, the one I'm talking about is, oh no, I've lost my train of thought. What were you
Sorry.
just chatting about? No, that's okay.
The
I'm
the
old.
um it was a Circles of Hell.
Circles of Hell, right? And we're all given seven deadly sins.
mhm.
And that would be a natural for Barbie to get lust, right? Oh, did I suffer? I couldn't think of a damn thing. And then I went back and looked at this fragment of a story I'd started ages ago about a dominatrix going back in time to meet her, you know, um, object of her obsession, who was Jack the Ripper.
Oh,
So that didn't work out that well for either of them, but they ended up in the circle of hell. But that was enormous fun to because I've always been obsessed, obviously, because I've written a book about a serial killer. Because I'm so not a serial killer. I'm so
hmm,
fascinated by how can you do this
Sure,
yeah.
horrible stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
but Jack the Ripper, of course, has always been. Oh, we found out who it is finally. No, not really. Go
No,
back, try harder. But the so that was interesting.
I
But
think
I guess
I remember that story. I think it was called Liaison, right? And it
yes.
was Circles
Oh,
of Hell
Yeah.
was edited by Dean Drinkle as well.
yeah. Again, it's a domain job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a foreword by Peter Atkins on that book as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Actually, I
stuff.
think it might have been a different publisher. I'm sorry, it might have been a different publisher, but he's got his
I think it
fingers in
was
many pies. That sound disgusting, but
uh,
he's real does all these things. He's also a very talented director and script writer as well, and he's got
sure.
a
I think
film
Circles of
production.
Hell came out by TK Pulp.
You're right. Good,
Yes. Yeah.
but
But that's good stuff. But going back to the Cilicium Quadra, so people who were familiar with the Voices of the Damned, they know the other two stories, but then this one is where
Or
it finally
three.
all comes. Three stories, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
yeah,
But this is one where we finally get to see what happens after the rebellion in hell.
yeah,
Uh, I thought it was amazing. Like, I don't want to spoil it for whoever hasn't read it yet, but this came
Yeah.
out in the summer of 2024, and it really is worth reading because it's such an amazing subversion of what people think that the Hellraiser hell is supposed to be. And
yeah,
then, obviously her ambition, Sister Celise's ambition, comes to the point where she's like tired of being, like you said at the beginning of the episode, second
mm,
banana, right?
yeah,
So she's like, hey, why don't we just there's not a lot of women in hell because men tend to be more, tend to give in more to their desires than women. So she decides to create like a clique in hell of female Cenobites. And
yeah,
she she does that by creating this wonderful machine that she starts gathering figures from history. One thing I thought was really amazing is the way that you have like Sister Celice walking through this portal that not only could take her anywhere in space, but also in time. So she can go and visit like the toy maker in Paris back in the 1800s and commission something. And then he makes something for her. And she starts making this series of Cenobites to help her with her rebellion idea, which she picks some really amazing figures of history, like Joan of Arc, and Cleopatra, but not the Cleopatra from the Ptolemaic dynasty, another Cleopatra.
Cleopatra the Alchemist.
That's right, the Alchemist.
And of course, I've always had a fondness for Lilith, who was Adam's first wife, and he got rid of her because she was a bit too. She didn't do what he wanted her to do, and she's like, "Okay, bugger off then." And it's a bit. Of course, this is all mythology and all these things like this, but it's interesting to find these characters and think, okay, why not? I mean, it's sort of like assembling the A team, except the C team is a Cenobite team of getting all these experts together to see if they could sort of kick some male Cenobite butt. And unfortunately, it all goes hideously wrong. Yeah. But it's because I suppose in many ways it is the usual thing. Ambition can be a great thing that drives you ahead to create wonderful things or do wonderful things, or it can be your destruction. And if you have ambition without any kind of, I just want to be queen of hell, you might end up, as she is queen of the labyrinth, but it's a lonely life.
Well, and that's a theme for going all the way back to the Hellbound heart, right? Just even having the desire to open the puzzle box and then finding out, this is more than what I wanted.
What I loved about in the book is that Clive sort of dwells on very briefly, but on his disappointment that there aren't sort of more sexy, bodacious women. He thought he was going to get wow. Instead, no, they're ripping his skin off. That's not exactly what he was imagining.
He got the intensity of all of these different feelings, and then then they start tearing him apart.
Yeah. But no, it's. I do feel that actually I'm very proud of these stories, and I feel that I've, in many ways, broken off a little new branch of the mythology to something, and it's very nice to when people come up and say, "Oh my God, I really love that story,"
Sure.
And it's because I never imagined that I'd end up being a writer. I've got a few books out and stuff like that, but I suppose with my sick imagination, it was inevitable. But eventually, as I've said before in interviews, if you're a thespian, acting and a woman, acting leaves you behind sometimes, and that's why it was interesting acting again for the first time for doing the dark ditties things. Yeah. For Amazon Prime, for The Offer, and Dad, which was wonderful, and joining my pals again.
I haven't heard anything about that in a while. Is there anything in the works with those?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they've sort of the series is reached some kind of thing. They're now looking at doing comics of the stories. I've seen some wonderful work, but I'm not quite sure what the boys are plotting at the moment. I know that there were some other ones going to be happening, but I never heard anything more.
Yeah.
We'll have to get in touch with Gary Smart and see what he's got in store for that. I also
or Laurie knows more about it than anybody.
I
Yeah.
also think that in many ways this is a very feminist horror that you've created here
Yeah.
because you know, as the Cenobites have been associated with themes of punishment and perversion, I think that you claimed their mythology and turned it into like a space for feminine rage and empowerment.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
Also,
and
the women that she
making it
picks, right? They're
and
women, like you said, that like Lilith, she wouldn't do what Adam wanted her to do, so she got given the boot. Or
yeah.
Cleopatra the Alchemist, or
Mm.
Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc started getting a lot of political power and military power, and then they decided, let's just take her out of the picture. And it's
Yeah.
like, here's a chance for them to come back and be like, yes, now we're gonna take over, and we're gonna be part of this infernal rebellion, which
Yeah.
Yeah, make
goes
up for
really
the
well.
shortcomings in their mortal lives.
Well,
Yes.
I suppose, I mean, that's what when Paul Kane, um, who also wrote a wonderful sort of, I called it an infernal mashup when I wrote the forward to it. Sherlock Holmes and the Servants of
Hmm.
Hell, Sherlock
Yeah.
Holmes and the Cenobites was quite wonderful.
Yeah.
But he said, listen, we really would like to have a female perspective on the mythology. And when you think about just going back to the original book and the original movies, I mean, to me, Claire Higgins, Julia is the diva of
Yeah.
horror. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just this powerful, no nonsense. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm in love with Frank and we're having a lot of fun here. Let's do this but I thought it was very funny though that the one thing the American censors took out of the first movie, supposedly this is
Yeah.
the rumors I heard, is that there was a scene where Frank was spanking Julia, just a little bit of
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep.
S&M or whatever, and
Yeah.
I just thought, but that's fairly harmless, isn't it? I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
Nowadays, yes.
It's interesting that American perspective, right, where something like that is too much, but
hmm.
somebody getting suspended by chains and then their body ripped apart and their head flies through the air and hits the door, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually think that could be possibly the sort of some of the problems with, you know, it is,
Yeah.
I mean, this is
It's
something I
true.
kind of address in the Venus complex
Yeah.
as well, is
Yeah.
what turns a man into a serial killer.
Yeah.
And it is this, it doesn't really um, make
You,
sense to me, but hey,
now that I'm a parent, I sort of wonder if it has to do with things that people don't want to explain to their kids. You know what I mean? Like I I have a hard time with when he was really young. I had a hard time with movies where they're like having to fight each other over like is Santa Claus real or not. It's like why are you even talking about this in the movie? Leave it alone. I don't
mm,
want to have to, I don't want to raise that question in my son's head yet.
I think in yeah, I mean, when you go back to things like in Hellraiser, they have to keep cutting away during the love making scene between Frank and Julia because I think the BBFC did not allow more than two consecutive thrusts of the buttocks on camera, so they have to cut to something else and then
Was
show.
that the British or the
I
MPAA that had that
I
problem?
I feel like it was the BBFC, but now I'm not sure.
Really?
But I feel like that has more to do with the
they counted them.
Yeah.
yeah, someone would probably count them. Yes, some poor
Yeah.
guy in like smoking a cigar in like a dark room watching the movie, like, 1, 2, you got to put something in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
Well,
yeah,
what
it's in,
constitutes an R-rated movie versus an X-rated movie is so arbitrary. It depends
yeah.
yeah.
on the people at the time and how they're feeling, that day when
I,
they're watching the movie.
I don't know if either of you guys have ever seen a film that we watch at least once every 2 months because it's so inspirational. There's a film called Hitchcock,
Mhm.
and it's about Alfred Hitchcock making Psycho. And he just had North by Northwest. It was a huge success, and he desperately wanted something different. And no one wanted him to make that film.
Oh
And
yeah.
and his wife Alma, who's played by the delicious Helen Mirren, my girl crush, she said, "Why this one, Alfred? why this one? He said, oh, I want to have fun again, like when we were starting out, when we were making movies, it was just you and me and blah, blah, blah. He used the TV crew from his really successful TV show, shot it in black and white. Don't know, it took that long. But the censors, sorry, no American movie has shown a toilet flushing. And he just, and I must say, Anthony Hopkins was brilliant. And he went, well, perhaps I should go and make it in France then and just use a bidet. And of course, they don't know what a bidet is. But, and it's very, very funny. And it is, because a lot of it is quite real. Mm-hmm. I mean, supposedly, I believe he mortgaged his house because he wanted to control every aspect of the film. He demanded final cut, which of course Alma helped him with because she was a brilliant editor. And he made more money from that film, than any film before or after.
It seemed also like it was pretty out there for a 1960 movie to have the main character being like having an affair with another man and trying to steal money and run away with it.
Oh, yeah. And as, in the movie, he's trying to think, oh, who should I get? Should I get Grace? And Grace Kelly's a princess now. She's not going to be in one of your films.
In Monaco.
What about, oh God, I can't remember. Janet Leigh. She always plays the good girl. She'd be great in this. And it's wonderful. If you love, to me, it's one of my all-time favorite films.
And that's, I think Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Yes.
Right. That's right. Yeah. That movie that you're talking, Hitchcock, is that the one that has Sir Anthony Hopkins playing Hitchcock?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. It's really good.
I haven't seen that. I'll have to watch that. Now I've got two movies that I need to watch. The First Omen and Hitchcock.
Yeah, well, yeah. I have to say that I think it is a wonderful thing, but just showing how so many people, like I said, didn't want him to make the film. And I'm sure that Clive, it was very difficult to get the right sort of stamp, the restrictive, age restrictive thing. And I do remember that I was doing film review at the same time I was filming. I had a late night video review show. And one of my heroes was this guy called Barry Norman, whose father was a very famous director, and he hated Hellraiser.
Yeah.
So they invited him onto the set of the second one. And I thought, oh my God, my hero is going to be here. And so I hid behind a box because I didn't want him to see me with a huge wound in my throat. I was so stupid. Oh. Barbie now would go, hi.
Yeah, in full makeup.
Huge wound in my throat. I wouldn't have cared. And then I remember Jeff Portas going, Barbie, where are you? And he'd scarp it off because he didn't like horror films. He didn't like Fight Club either, which I thought was a magnificent film.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
A lot of women hated it, but I just thought, my God, this really shows the predicament of men in this time now. And I thought it was very interesting. But anyway, so just going back, I'm sure the censors must have had a field day, especially in America. But I don't think they would have in Scandinavia or any of these places.
Yeah.
The rebellion itself during the Cilicium Quadra is a fantastic tale. And again, I don't want to spoil that, but they come up with that machine to control the male Cenobites, and something unexpected happens, and she's pretty much left alone until she understands that it's now her job to recreate hell in her image, and that's going to happen with again. You mentioned something here also straight out of like the Da Vinci Code, right? When the one of the instruments turns into a cryptex or whatever it was called.
Yeah. Like I want one of those so badly. As soon as I watched the Da Vinci Code the first time, I just thought this idea of having this thing you could,
put a little combination on and open it up and put secrets inside.
Oh, I loved it. I mean, but it is a real thing. but I just thought that was, I think it was invented by Leonardo da Vinci. Oh, hence the Da Vinci
Yeah.
Code. But yes, and unfortunately, it has another purpose in that story. But she does manage to repopulate hell. But like one of the most disturbing stories I ever saw, because my parents were always giving me nature books and all this kind of stuff. And, it's like sometimes certain species of spider, they're the babies come out of the egg sac and then just eat mom.
Oh,
I always find it's really horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about the struggle of motherhood with that. That's wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and doesn't an octopus, right? Don't they kind of get exhausted and die when they finally give birth?
That's right. Yeah. They just stay in their little hole caring for the little octopi until they die. Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that in this wonderful documentary, won an Oscar, My Octopus Friend.
Oh, I love that.
That's where I heard about that for the first time.
I had no idea, because the first thing I ever saw about octopi was a wonderful documentary about the octopi that live in Puget Sound near Seattle. Mm-hmm. And I was like entranced by these creatures. And I just thought, oh God, they're so extraordinary. They really are like aliens from another world. They're very intelligent. They turn white with fear. And one of the things I loved, a little sort of sidebar, this is really getting off topic, sorry, but in The Night Manager with Tom Hiddleston, there's one, he gets damaged trying to fight off the kidnappers of this young guy so he can wheedle his way into Dickie Roper's house. And the little boy comes in and says, thank you for saving me. Should I read you a story about cephalopods or something? I'd like to know about squid. So he starts reading about squid. It's just so cute. But no, I just found it very interesting. And but insects have always bothered me a bit. And I love and admire spiders, but I have arachnophobia. So it's that idea of being devoured by your own children, which doesn't happen, of course. But it was kind of horrifying to me. So
I think it's a perfect ending to this story. And
thank you.
Demain also put out a different cover for the Venus Complex, isn't that right?
Yes. Well, Dean said he thought it would be great for the second edition to have a completely different cover, and I said let's use this work that again that I found on Steph's site, and she was said yes, sure, that'd be lovely to do that.
Fabulous.
So I think it's wonderful. That is not to say, I mean, I love Danny Serra's first cover, but Dean wanted something completely different.
This one.
So that's wonderful. But
do you have that second edition cover for the Venus? There it is.
It's beautiful. Indeed. Yeah.
And that's pretty recent. I haven't ordered that yet myself, but I'm interested to get that.
But it has the sensual. I mean, like the first one, there's something very sensual about it, and it's it's been, like I said, one of the wonderful things about doing what I do, whether it's sort of being a Cenobite at conventions or an actress or a writer, is that I meet some wonderful, talented people in the art world. I mean, I've never been able to draw a damn thing. And
I know.
No, I tell a lie. I was in hospital for about 3 months or 6 weeks or something like that once. And I thought, I've got to get something out of this. And I was 14. So I learned how to draw Snoopy.
Oh. There we go. Peanuts. Wonderful.
Not very scary, but I can do Snoopy in all sorts of poses. And I even did a Cenobite Snoopy once.
That's amazing. But that cover by Steph for the Venus Complex, that looks almost like one of Michael's victims, right? Like when he displays his victims in like the different poses of art related to art, famous art and stuff.
It's funny. I didn't even, I just saw it and I liked it. I thought that's what I want.
Well, and since it's
Of
been a
course,
decade since we can talk about that book a little bit, because you know, I wonder how many of our listeners were with us back then. You know, maybe that we've got some new people, but yeah, the Venus Complex is it's a great story, and I remember my feeling at the time is it puts you in a little bit of an uncomfortable place because it puts you in the mind of the serial killer because it's from his perspective. And you
yeah,
kind of start feeling like, okay, I don't like this guy. I don't like how he's thinking. I don't want to be put in his shoes.
Yes,
yeah,
But
Michael Friday.
yeah.
yeah,
Professor Michael Friday. No, I felt that I was sort of looking around for something, because like I said, acting had kind of left me behind. And I thought, well, I should write from my passion. And my passion was the criminal mind. And I'd read all these books, like the um, books by Colin Wilson, specifically about the criminal mind and all this stuff. And I thought, why not try to see if I can do it? And I worked on it for about a year. And it's a story of a plucky forensic psychologist on the track of a serial killer and that kind of thing. And then I went, oh, this is so boring. And then I went, I'll write it from his
Yeah.
viewpoint.
Right.
yeah.
Then I read this thing. It's like, you can always tell a first time writer because they always write from the first person. Oops.
Oh,
And I thought, you know what? To heck with it. This is what I
Yeah.
want to
yeah.
write. And it does make people uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
In a good way. I mean that's that's why it's impactful, I think.
It
yeah,
I
was an
didn't mean to
unusual
sound like I was
perspective.
complaining. I just think it's
Right.
it's really interesting.
It is an
yeah,
unusual perspective to see it from the
Yeah.
side of the killer and how the descent
Yeah.
into like his rituals and stuff. And I particularly enjoy the fact that it looks like you've really done your research because he starts out with a traumatic car accident.
yeah,
And if you're into like serial killers, you know that most of these guys at some point had some sort of traumatic like physical experience, or whether they dropped on their head as babies or were beaten by their mothers or whatever happened. And that's usually
Yeah.
what triggers kind of like the pathology sometimes.
yeah, yeah,
It's not just so much genetic but also a part of a nurture kind of thing. And usually if there's a big traumatic thing like this, it can actually change who you are overnight almost. And
yeah,
he does fall into that traumatic incident. And yeah, it kind of touches something in like the bottom of the sea of our subconscious. I did feel that little scraping at the bottom
yeah.
of the sea when I was reading this. I was like, I don't like the texture of what I'm touching down there. It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of
Yeah.
squishy and making me feel funny.
Well, yeah, and there's a
Yeah.
hole where his conscience should be, right? Where he should be feeling sorry for some of the things that are happening that he's causing to these people.
Yeah,
He should
yeah,
be feeling remorse and guilt.
yeah. But unfortunately, many of them don't. Many of them never
Yeah.
get caught. I mean, I read a lot of books by Robert Ressler, who invented the term. I think was he the one who came up with serial killer? I can't remember.
Oh.
But he one of the story I always remember is he was called into some place in the Midwest, and they said, we found this clearing and it's really creepy. We want you to come and look. And he came and looked, and there were all these animals sort of displayed in horrible, bloody ways, hanging from trees, and sort of very ritualistic. He went, "Uh-oh, something's starting." And it was later traced back to Jeffrey Dahmer.
Wow.
Oh,
And
wow.
a
Yeah.
lot of them, torture animals and all this kind of stuff. But I think this whole thing of, it's very difficult as well. I've been seeing some very disturbing things on social media. I won't go too far into it, but is that, oh, women, it's all their fault and they are Satan, and they're just because most of these guys can't get a date, and it
Mm.
is
Exactly.
it's very difficult now, and you see this toxic masculinity rising
Yeah.
its
Yeah.
ugly head, and it's they may say, well, it's toxic femininity, but I think I've
Got to
I've seen
blame somebody, I guess.
Yeah.
I've seen what happens when
Yeah.
when women especially don't follow their dreams and don't do what they would
Yeah.
love to do. And it leads a lot of disappointment that a man would say, well, what does it matter? They're just women. But, there are so many women who have actually, one of the discoverers of, it was her x-rays that led to I'm not very good at remembering names, but the guys that sort of got the Nobel Peace Prize or Science Prize for discovering DNA things.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Watson and Crick.
Yeah, Watson and Crick. There was a third person who helped them.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. She was a scientist. She also did other stuff.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember the name of her name. See, this is one of the things. This is one of the systemic, kind of a little bit of misogynistic systemic thing that we remember the guys who did stuff, but we don't remember the women who helped them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she was a member of the team. They studied her x-rays. She was doing the hard work, and it is.
That's right.
It's tragic. I mean, many women have very fine brains and they should be celebrated. And there's a thing on Facebook I follow called Women Hold Up Half the Sky. And I think it's really good, all these women, African-American woman who invented, sort of the dishwasher. And we go, oh, it's only the dishwasher. Well, sorry, a lot of guys would be up Poopy Creek if there wasn't a dishwasher.
It's a great feat of engineering when you think about it. Yeah. And I found the name of the lady that worked with James Watson and Francis Crick. That scientist was Rosalind Franklin. She was an X-ray crystallographer at King's College in London. So now we have her name on record here. I apologize that I didn't know her name, but I did look it up.
No, I should have known her name.
But you're right. I mean, it's ridiculous nowadays that it seems like things are moving backwards a little bit. And it seems like the idea that some men out there want to stay in power and disempower anybody that they think is beneath them, including women or anybody different from them. It's a pathological behavior because we're all stronger when we're all together working, enjoying each other's differences and, using synergy to bring everything up in terms of not just the discourse of society, but also, the contributions that we can have, not just by, who's the richest guy, but who can create a society that's actually comfortable to live in, who can be a good nurturer. Those are good, important things. You want to live in a world where you feel nurtured and supported, not a world that's competitive and dismissive of your accomplishments if you're not, a rich white guy.
Yeah. Well, one of the, sorry, I'm trying to find this quote from somebody that I love. Where is he? Come on. You can just, one of my all-time favorite TV shows that my father was very enthusiastic about because he was a science fiction fan. And he said, this new TV show is coming out and it's going to be written by some of the best writers in the genre. And we never missed an episode of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And what's Star Trek all about? You get Lieutenant Uhura, head of communications.
Yeah.
Something happened. The navigator has to run out of the door. She goes and takes over. Never a word said about it because everybody knew she could do it. And that's why it was such a wonderful thing. But I came across this quote by Gene Roddenberry. If man is to survive, he will learn to take a delight in the essential differences between cultures, to learn that differences in ideas and attitudes are a delight, part of life's exciting variety, not something to fear. And this is what everything is all about. And I keep coming back to this meme that came up many years ago. And it's a picture of George Orwell. And it said, I wrote 1984 as a work of fiction, not as a handbook or a manual.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. And now it's sort of like, oh God, I can't remember her name now either. The lady, Margaret Atwood wrote the Handmaid's Tale.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw her being interviewed, and she said, everyone keeps telling me it's science fiction. It's not science fiction. This is happening to women in certain countries right now.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
100%.
And you've got to keep an eye on this kind of thing. But anyway, back to those darn Cenobites.
Ooh, wow.
But
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
interesting, isn't it? That it's all, people think that, the Cenobites are, dare I say, quite attractive. Now, why would that be?
Yeah.
And it's because they're powerful beings, male or female.
Yeah.
I always felt like, to me, why are the Cenobites attractive? I never thought that they were scary to begin with, right? When I saw Hellraiser, I was more fascinated with the Cenobites, and I was fascinated with the Barbie Cenobite, of course, and Angelique and all those great designs. But it was always because it seems like they are, in a way, free from any constraints. So they can pursue anything in its purest form. And I think whether it's good or bad, I mean, that's, not important to them. They just want to find out more about what makes them tick, and they want to know what's at the root of things, what's at the heart of everything. And I think that's why
I always felt
they
kind
become
of the
fascinating.
opposite. They seem like they're really stuck. I mean, they have, they're stuck in hell until somebody, discovers the box and opens it, and then they get, 10, 15 minutes of being able to do whatever they want, and then they're back to what, they're stuck in their monkish cells or what whatever's going on.
Well, I've always thought that, and I think this is something that Clive did too. I have to confess, I haven't read The Hellbound Heart in a long time, but they're it's multi-dimensional beings. They don't necessarily live in hell. I had her living in something, it was a labyrinth, it was called.
Right.
A hellish place. But,
Yeah.
and hell freezes over and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this, they are free to travel. But I have always felt from her viewpoint that she was, their victims call them. They're opening the box.
Yeah.
Hey, we're here to give your every desire, but it may not be exactly what you wanted, And like Frank and stuff like that.
But nobody ever opens the box and then they're not there because they're out busy doing some other fun thing. It's like they're they're right there waiting on the threshold, hoping that somebody's gonna open the box.
Yeah.
What I like about stories like this is that they show us a little bit of what goes on outside of the things we're used to seeing in the movie. So what is their backstory like, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what do they do? They're not just sitting there in a little cell waiting for things to happen. They're scheming, they're testing, they're plotting, and they're doing stuff for themselves as well. So I always thought that was interesting to see the inner life of the Cenobites.
Yeah.
And you get a little bit of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Well, I was going to say that sort of they are Machiavellian beings, and it is that they're not sort of. It's not like they're sitting around playing pool with each other.
Right. Right.
It's all power shifts and this kind of stuff as well. In my idea of it.
I also enjoyed the fact that between every story, there's a little bit of a reprise of what happened before. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of back when, you had serial stories coming out in magazines, right? Like Varney the Vampire or something like that, where each new story starts by putting us in the information of what happened before. It gives us a little bit of information about that, and it almost feels like a serial in 4 parts. And even though it's so thin, but it feels so dense. I mean, in some ways, I appreciated this series of stories as much as I did the Scarlet Gospels
Oh,
that Clive
wow.
Barker wrote. I did. Yeah, no, that's not, I'm not just saying that. It's because I just feel like this is also like another way that you can, another avenue that you could go into what happens with hell and the whole offshoot of the
Yeah.
Hellbound Heart. I like the story. I like the fact that it has a relatively happy ending at the end. You know, can a Cenobite find love? We'll find out.
Well, just like the dominatrix who found her dream boat,
That's
you
right.
know, I mean,
That's right.
Right.
um,
Right.
everybody's got somebody out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
I love this. I think it's a
Yeah.
great thing, and people should get the
um,
Cilicium Quadra, and they should also go get
I'll
Patient
hold
K
mine up too. We can use that
and the second
for our
edition
cover.
of the Venus Complex. People should get that too
Oh
because
yeah.
it's a whole new cover.
Did you say you have to hold yours up at the
okay,
same time?
I
Come on.
I
Sure.
have to hold them up at the same time.
All right.
Okay,
Yay.
we got the screenshot. There we go.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just waiting till, okay, here we are.
We're good.
All right.
Wonderful.
Although Barbie, you were kind of blocked out of the.
That's
the
fine.
shot.
That's fine. What a great experience was reading this, and I really enjoyed it. And like Doug Bradley says right in the cover, sick but in a delicious way.
Yes.
In delicious ways.
We should also mention, and I know you had said before that that version is already getting a lot of attention, but Doug Bradley reads the audiobook for the Venus Complex, right?
Yes.
And so that's pretty cool. If you
Yeah.
know, he's done voice work for some of Clive Barker's stuff, audiobooks, and so people should check that out too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
on
Well,
Audible.
I was very pleased. I was basically I gave the Venus Complex to Steph because she's fascinated by serial killers too. And she said, Barbie, I don't really read fiction. I said, listen, Steph, I really did my research and I think you'll be interested in this. Anyway, so they went home and she asked Doug to read it to her while she's working on her
Mhm.
paintings, her
Oh, wow.
gloriously visceral paintings. And they came over in Chicago a few years ago. And I said, oh, well, she said, oh, well, Doug read me your book. And I thought it was brilliant. And I went, wow, Doug reading my book. I'd like to hear that. And he just went in his Doug-like way. Yes, we have to talk about that.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
And so he
I could
recorded
totally picture him saying it like that.
and he recorded it in his basement recording studio.
Oh,
And he, because he's got it's all set up, because he does these things all the time, and he's had
Yeah.
reviews by Guillermo del Toro is given him great reviews for his work and stuff. And so he did it, and we had sort of discussions, and he would send me stuff, and my partner and I would sit and listen to them, and there's this moment when he's going, if I can't stalk a girl in my, dead wife's wonderful car, I'm not going to use because most serial killers use Volkswagen Beetles for some reason. And
that's a thing. Okay.
Yeah. And
I've owned 2 Volkswagen Beetles in my life.
oh no, it's because you can remove the front seat, passenger seat really easily, for reasons we don't want to go into.
Okay.
But then he gave this little chuckle, this demonic little chuckle. And we just were, see, there's a lot of humor in that book, even though it's disgusting,
Yeah.
But he caught on all the right bits. He did a magnificent job. And one of the reviewers said his smooth and venomous tones, and he did a fantastic job. And I'm very pleased that he's did it. So check out the Kindle. I always do
Audible.
That. The Audible.
That's right.
As well. But
yeah. We'll put a link to that one in the show notes as well for the Audible version. And if you're into books like Bret Easton Ellis' American Psycho or Joyce Carol Oates' Zombie, this is kind of in the same vein. And I think I've mentioned this before, and I'm sorry if I already told you this, Barbie, but when I read the Venus Complex, I was actually vacationing in Paris. So I read it in Paris,
Oh, I
in
remember
between
that.
trips
Yeah.
to the Louvre, and it was a completely different experience for me. It was like, wow, this is something. And so I had a really good time reading that over an extended weekend in Paris, and I thought it
Wow.
was just amazing. Yeah,
Well, I hope you sort of tried to track down some of his art.
I did.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did. I sure did.
Yeah.
But
In our
yeah,
past chats with you, we've talked about some other great stuff that we didn't get to today, but your time working on Death Wish 3
Oh,
mhm.
and
yes, yes.
Grizzly 2 and
Yep.
of course Hellbound, and that we all knew about, but yeah, so I'd want to say, for people that are hearing us, didn't hear us way back then, we'll put a link to that episode as well so people
Yeah.
can hear that.
Oh, that'd be nice because that was, fun talking about those crazy days. And now, of course, because of the Me Too movement, I did have some sort of, moments that weren't very
Oh.
good with what's his name? Michael Winner.
Oh, okay.
And, yeah. Well, no, he just wanted me to, he wanted me to do a scene. He said, "Oh, can you take your top off for it, love?" And I was like, "You don't do that."
Right. No.
And all I could think of is my little mum, lapsed Catholic mum
Oh, yeah.
at home. And so I said, well, you'd have to pay me extra. And he said, "Oh, dear girl, no one's making any money on this film." I said, "But Mr. Winner, you pre-sold the video rights alone for £300,000. I read it in the Evening Standard last night." And
That shut him up.
he said, "Get off my set."
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah,
my God.
I had one more day, right? And my agent, so called at the time, was really pissed off with me because he said, "You
Yeah.
could have had another week." I went, "With that guy? No, thanks."
Yeah,
And
what a
so,
fragile ego.
Was
oh
this
dear.
Grizzly 2 or Death Wish?
Death Wish 3. Death Wish
Oh,
3.
okay.
It's okay. It's not like he cut me out or anything, And but the funny thing is, he got another girl to sit in this apartment with the bad guys. He did
Oh, okay.
ask her to take her top off.
Oh, was that the scene
Yeah.
when Charles Bronson shot a rocket launcher through the window into the?
No, that's later.
That's
Okay.
later. That's at the end of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when
Yeah.
I that's when he came over and he said, "We've got one take. Don't blow it. Scream your head off." And I was just like, "Oh my God." And
That
so when
scene
I
is
screamed,
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's crazy. The way
Yeah,
that he
those
just
movies
shoots him
really
point blank with a
escalated
bazooka.
by
I
the
know.
third one.
Oh, my God.
it was fun. And he was a real gent, Charles
Yeah.
Bronson. He was okay. And Gavin O'Hurley, he was lovely. I mean, they were all lovely. And I actually met Rico Ross, who was one of the gang members,
Mhm.
quite
wow.
recently. And he was, "Oh my God, I can't believe it."
Oh,
Oh,
at a
wow.
convention?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
that's
no.
cool.
Yeah.
It's and before we go, I did want to ask you, do you have any upcoming conventions or anything we can look out for you at?
I'm at a convention in Sheffield, the UK.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's it at the moment because I did quite a
Okay.
few last year, sadly.
What's that one called?
Horror Con. I'm also a cover girl of Dementia magazine.
Oh,
Hey, look at
yeah.
that. Delirium?
Delirium.
Delirium.
I
Sorry,
have to get
Delirium.
that one.
Did I keep calling it dementia? That's not a good sign, is it? Delirium magazine, 39th
Oh.
evil issue.
Oh,
Very big
wonderful.
in that. So, sex, sin, and cinema.
Yeah.
We got to get
So-
that one. Sex, Sin, and Cenobites. Barbie
Yeah, I
Wilde
think
on
it's-
acting, writing, and tearing souls apart. Oh, my goodness.
It's what I do.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh,
And
man.
HorrorCon UK, I found the announcement that you're going to be there, so we'll add that to the show notes as well. And yeah, something wicked is going to show up at HorrorCon. That's going to be
Yes, it's got quite a good cast. It's Doug, Ashley, Nick, Simon, moi, and a bunch
Jen
of other
and
people.
Sylvia Soska, the Cenobites, and Skinless Frank. Apparently, they're going to be there.
Yes,
So Oliver Smith.
he's doing
Wow.
it. Very
Wow.
sweet. Oh, he's a
That's
Oh.
really cool.
Here.
I'm glad
And
this
I
one
love
better.
this. I love
Our
this.
UK
Oscar.
listeners should not miss out.
Yes. And I love the Soskas. It's going to be great seeing them again. I must get
Oh yeah.
contact. But yeah, so
Oh, wonderful. All right. I got to get that Delirium magazine. Looks like it came out in December, so I have to catch up on that. Thanks for
yeah,
letting us
Yeah.
know.
yeah. I'm not quite sure when it came out. Was it December?
I think that's the December issue of 2024 from
Yeah.
what I could see here. But yeah, so there's a big interview with you in there.
It's huge.
Oh my God.
Oh
Look at
wow,
that.
look at that. That's great.
Oh,
Cover
one,
girl.
two. Yeah, there's me in Death Wish. Where am I? Can you see it?
Wow. Oh, that's
Yep,
awesome. So it
absolutely.
even
Yep.
goes beyond like Hellraiser 2.
Oh my God, hold on. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages. Wow.
Wow. Hey, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, so it's a beautiful thing.
Yay.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I
We're
want
gonna
to check that out.
we're gonna put links to that in our
Yeah.
episode. And as usual, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh,
Yeah.
Talk
thank you for
about this
asking me.
lovely
Yeah, this was
story,
fun. I
the
am
Cilicium
shocked that it's
Quadra.
been since 2015. I had no idea. I thought
I
it seems like time's going by so fast.
Well, there was a bit of a blip along the way, wasn't there?
Yes.
Everybody was sort of, hunkering
Yeah.
down and stuff. But
That's
I'm
true. It
surprised
didn't.
that
It really didn't change our podcast. That I mean, how we do our podcast is because
Yeah.
we've always been in different places. When we started, Jose was in Portugal,
That's right.
and so we had the same time difference that you and I have right now, which was 9 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a pleasure seeing you guys again, as
Oh,
always.
Coming next, hopefully we'll at some point we'll kind of do a similar thing with bring Nicholas Vince back because it's been a long time talking
yep.
to him also. Since then. So to talk about I Am Monsters and
I
whatever
bought
else is
the
going on with him.
I bought the Blu-ray with the dedication, so I'm looking
I
forward to
saw
getting
that.
that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had to get dedication. I mean, I have to get it.
Jericho
Just like
Squad.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
just like I got to get that Delirium magazine now because that looked
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, now I want to watch the first Omen and Hitchcock.
Well, it's Saturday. We can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, we want to catch up with Nicholas Vince again. It's been a long time. And we should probably also do the same thing with Simon Bamford, and catch up and see all the things that have happened in their lives between the last time we talked to them. We don't do a lot of interviews, right? So it's like, I can't believe it's been 10 years since we had her on.
It's crazy. Yeah, time goes by
Yeah.
real fast.
Yeah. So Jericho Squad will be doing really soon. I'm having some issues with artists. The first artist that was working on the Heart of the Aboriginal, sort of ghosted me for since August.
Oh no.
And so I only had concept art, and that's what we used on our last episode.
Okay.
It was like what do you think of this? This is what if you like this, then we'll make the big version. And that's all I got. And then so I just started trying to work with another artist, and that person gave me some concept art that wasn't quite right. Like it had shackles on its arms, and the Nullianax that made up the body of the heart of the Aboriginal were huge. Like, they would take up like the whole torso, like Devastator. They're not
Okay.
not made out of thousands of them. It's made out of more like, 25.
Right.
Yeah, and it had shackles on his arms. I'm like, what's with the shackles? And I was like, where did that come from? And he's like, well, I don't think this is working out. I don't
Okay.
have time to go back and start over again. And then the person that ghosted me contacted me back and said they were really sorry. It was because they're a trans person and their parents kicked them out of the house and they
Oh
lost.
no. It's
Yeah, and
horrible.
so I'm like, well, hey, do you want to take this back up again now? I mean,
Yeah.
but now it's been like 3 days since that last message, and I don't know what's going to happen with all this. It's all in limbo. Just over some little thing with the artwork, and so that's why I haven't been pushing to do a new episode yet. I want to have
Okay.
something that looks really cool, for the
I'm
end.
looking forward to see what happens with Jericho at the end because it's been a long time coming. And when we think about when we started this whole thing about, the first time that I woke up in that ice cave having a nightmare with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
When did we start? When was the first episode of Jericho Squad? How many years ago was
I think
that?
it started in 2020.
Oh my God, it's been almost 5 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a great set of adventures, and I kind of fumbled through it mostly, but I think now I'm ready to take on the heart of the Aboriginal.
All right.
And find out what's going to happen on the First Dominion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
then we'll see where that goes.
We've got Book Club of Blood will be Hell's Event, which we kind of made an homage to in Jericho Squad a few episodes back.
The downhill race.
Yeah.
Near Beatrix.
Yeah. And episode 500 is coming soon, which we probably should have a chat some point just to plan for planning purposes to figure out exactly what we're going to do.
Okay. Yeah, we can bring out some old guests, and we can bring up people who were with us in the early days and do a little bit of a clip thing or whatever. So if you guys have any ideas on what you'd like to say, send them over to us, me or Ryan. We'll add it to the retrospective episode planning.
Yeah. I think that'll be fun. All right. Well, in this podcast, having no beginning will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed or followed our podcast. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that's not affiliated with Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast Listeners Group, our Facebook page, Reddit, Blue Sky, or our Discord server. Have you already bought our book? The BarkerCast Interviews Occupy Midian, available in Amazon hardcover, Kindle, and Apple Books. Join our Patreon and become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, or maybe join in the discussion. You can also buy a t-shirt in our TeePublic store. Just go to teepublic.com/stores/BarkerCast. Leave a voicemail for us on the SpeakPipe link on our blog, and we might put it in the episode. Opening and ending music generously provided by Ray Norrish.
Thanks for listening.